In chapter 24, we will look at the causative stems. The causative stems are the Hifil and the Hofal. And with the causative stems, we get the nuance in translation of the subject caused to happen something, whatever the verbal action is. So um, sometimes you may get the subject caused such and such to die. In other words, they killed them. So you'll see that at times. Um, and so these Hifil and Hofal are the causative stems, and I think I have an example of each of these. So let's look at these without further ado. The first one we want to look at is a Hifil imperfect 2fs of Zakar. And like all the other ones, the first step as we're applying these is to write down the boxes. And in the Hifil imperfect box, we're going to use that placeholder ye. It's actually a ya. I was thinking Hifil. We're going to use the placeholder yod with the rest of our box. Now, the placeholder yod could stand for any of those preformatives in the imperfect. Aleph tav tav, yod tav, nun tav tav, yod tav in that paradigm. We just use the yod as a placeholder, and we'll see if that changes in just a minute. So we can just superimpose this right over our verb, and we're going to get something like that. Yazk, we don't have a vowel yet in the R2. We're coming up on that now. So in the Hifil, our thematic vowels are A, I, E, and this time we're not looking at a perfect, we're looking at an imperfect imperative. We are not looking at a feminine plural, so our thematic vowel is a Hirik Yod. And we then supply that Hirik Yod, and we end up with Yazkir. Okay, so again, we're still building. This is not a final answer. The next step we're going to look at is the call. And in this case, we get the call imperfect 2fs is tiktali. I believe that's right. And so what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at the preformative tav. So this tav is actually going to take the place of our yod placeholder, and we're going to look at the endings. And in this case, in the 2fs call imperfect, we get li. And so what we want to do is superimpose the rest of this onto our final word. Okay, I'm going to draw it a little bit bigger because I have the room. That resh got a little out of control. There we go. So let's superimpose the E. We're left with this here and the vowel. Now what we want to do is put the correct preformative on there, and we end up with tazkiri. Now, if you'll notice in our call, we had this reduction of the R2 because of a vocalic ending. We still have that vocalic ending here with the Hirik Yod. However, because the thematic vowel Hirik Yod is a historic long, we do not get reduction right here. So we end up with Taz Kiri. Notice the Dagesh Lene in the Kaf because of a Begad Kafat letter preceded by the absence of sound with that silent schwa. So I hope that one works for you. Again, steps, if we can work through the steps. Boxes, theme vowel, and then the call. Take performative subformatives, and then we can come about our final answer. Let's look at one more of these. I think I have a Hofal. Yeah, here we go. So let's look at the Hofal of Malach. Step one, again, boxes. Here we go. And our Hofal cohortative. What box are we going to use? Well, the cohortative is a version or a build of the imperfect 1CS. So let's go with our imperfect box, which is yo. Okay, again, this is a Kamet Hatuf right here, and we end up with yo as the box. Superimpose that over our verb, and we get just like that. Okay, step two is going to be theme vowels. In the Hofal, we have AA. We're not looking at the perfect. We don't have a feminine plural or other options, so we're going with an A in this one, okay? So we get, so far, Yom Lach, okay? Looking good to me. Let's go step 3. And what we end up with here is we're looking at the call. And in the call cohortative, this is what we get. Ek tala, okay? And again, we're going to take preformatives and sufformatives in this case. And now we notice that our aleph is going to supplant the yod as our placeholder, okay? So we end up with om. The vowel is going to stay the same here. I want to change this actually to a patach. Okay. And now we're going to put the cohortative ending on here. And we need to change this final cough to a middle cough to get that ending, okay? So there's our preformative and our sufformatives, so that has been added on. The last thing we need to do here is to recognize this reduction of the R2. In the last example that we looked at, the hifil had a historic long vowel there. The hofal does not. We indeed have a patach right here. So what we are going to get as our final answer is the reduction of the R2, and we're left with om lecha. Okay, om lecha. So this then is our final answer there. Again, this is kametz hatuf, because this is a silent schwa, and closed unaccented requires short vowels. Okay, I think that will make sense to you there. If you have any questions on those, let me know.